Well, welcome to the Irish Jesuit Mission Office. The Irish Jesuit Mission Office is the outreach of the Jesuits in Ireland to our works in Asia, that is mainland China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Cambodia, Japan, and especially to Africa, Southern Africa, which include especially the countries of Zambia and Malawi, and of Eastern Africa, which cover 6 countries now, because we have 2 Sudans. We have the newest country in the world, which is South Sudan. It became a country in 2011, a country which I visited just 2 weeks ago. We work also and support projects in Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania, and the 2 Sudans. Our support is of our partners who work in different projects in Eastern Africa and Southern Africa. For example, I'm just back from South Sudan, a country that was born just 3 years ago and tragically has fallen into a civil war in the last year. Today, in fact, is the first anniversary of the outbreak of real civil strife in South Sudan. There we support and we run a very big agricultural project, because the big need of post-conflict South Sudan is food. Food production, food sustainability in a country where there is 35% malnutrition amongst children aged between 1 and 8. Food production and different methods of food production is key in adding to the stability and sustainability of the South Sudan economy. So we run a very big agricultural college there, and the purpose is to teach and to train young farmers, both men and women, to grow nourishing food, fruit. For example, I took some lovely pictures of new potatoes and also of new tomatoes, also of watermelons, bananas. And people are learning how to grow these foods, especially nourishing foods. There's also a project to grow rice on that farm, which is a massive farm of 500 acres, given to us by the government in order to help local people to improve agricultural methods so that they can feed themselves. As the proverb says, give a man or woman a fish and you just feed them for a day, but if you teach them how to fish, they will feed themselves for life. So that is one purpose of that major project that we are supporting in South Sudan. Hopefully, South Sudan will remain at peace over Christmas and the New Year, because as we say in Swahili, the proverb in Swahili says, bila amani hakuna maendeleo, without peace there is no development. And peace and security and feeling just safe in your bed at night is key to help you get up in the morning and look and make a life for yourself. If you don't feel physical security, if you feel afraid, if you can't get a night's sleep at night, it's very hard to get up and work in an environment of security and safety. So hopefully peace can be maintained in South Sudan, so in fact our projects can continue. The other major project we have in South Sudan, which is kind of a great example of our work every place, is education. The proverb in Swahili is, elimu, education, ni ufunguo wa amani. Education is the key to peace. And when we educate young people, especially young people coming from different ethnic groups, coming from different clans, who kind of learn together, live together in a boarding school, talk with one another, share each other's customs, play football together, it helps really integration in developing a kind of a one nation and a one family, really, in terms of a mutual understanding of one another. So education is key. We run a very big school in a place called Wow, just beside Rumbek, in South Sudan, as we do in many African countries, in Southern Africa, in Uganda as well. Because we recognize that the education of young men and young women is key to building up a nation. In South Sudan, many of our students are ex-soldiers. They have been child soldiers, and after the war they have come back to school. Many of them they began to enter secondary school at the age of 15, 16, 19, 20. I think our oldest pupil is 26. And the wonderful thing in that school is that they're learning also the alphabet of peace after being at war. Because I do think that when a country has been at war, one enters into a culture and even a language of war, of tremendous aggression, of hurt. People are mourning lost ones, and they need a safe environment where they can mourn, learn about the problems of war, learn how they can get out of a mentality of vengeance, of hatred, and learn a language of love and of healing. And education is a tremendous way to help people to develop not only their country, but develop their spirits, their minds, their bodies. And what is wonderful about that school in Wow is that the number of girls, almost 50% of the school are girls. And while in Africa, it's very easy to enroll girls in school, be it primary school or secondary school, but to retain girls in school is not easy because of the customs and culture that in fact force girls into early marriage. Some girls are promised in marriage at the age of 12 or 14 and are married off at 15. And so the retention of girls in our educational institutions is key to the development of women, because I do think that the liberation of women in Africa is done through education and by education. And a number of years ago, we were working in refugee camps in northern Uganda with South Sudanese boys and girls. And it's wonderful to see now in the Department of Education in Juba, our graduate girls running that Department of Education. And they're tremendous mentors in order to help girls to go into and stay in schools. The other work we do, besides food production and education, is also helping what we call pastoral work, helping to build churches, enabling different youth centres to be built, community centres attached to churches, and to really develop a sense of community around the work that we do. And so in different parts of Africa, we contribute a lot to not only the building of churches, but also, more importantly, the building of communities, especially teachers of religion, catechetical teachers. We also work a lot with counsellors, training counsellors. We also work a lot in AIDS education in Zambia. A number of our parishes, our places of work, are places where the AIDS epidemic has really hit young Africans. And especially in a place like Chikuni in Zambia, AIDS education and enabling people who have AIDS and live, who are HIV positive, to be educators of others, to care for people who are HIV positive, but above all to take the stigma out of the kind of HIV epidemic. And so we have lots of women and men enabling and helping in our projects to walk with people who have AIDS, to try to develop skills with young people who are looking for jobs and who are maybe who in the employment place may not be the most kind of favoured or the most accepted, to give them skills in order that they can be self-reliant in terms of food. But also, as you're aware, the whole AIDS epidemic in Africa has changed with the antiretroviral medicine, which is really helping people to live long lives. Being HIV positive now is like having diabetes. You have to treat it, you will always have it. And when people are careful, they're well nourished and they're able to look after themselves, they can live a long life. And so we have a wonderful radio station in Chikuni, which we support, which really is a community radio station. It not only gives education out around HIV, AIDS, but it also has wonderful literacy programs. It also promotes adult education in the community. And especially literacy amongst women in many of the villages is extremely low. And it is wonderful when we teach people, especially adults, to read and write, because that's a form of liberation. If you're always dependent on people to count your money or tell you what's on a side of a notice board or on the street or on the side of a bag, you not only feel dependent, but you can also be very much exploited, as many women are exploited in African culture. So the mission office supports a major variety of works, and we do it very much in partnership. It's not just we giving and they receiving, but they give us an awful lot in terms of how to understand people in a very different culture. They give us a tremendous understanding of how poor people are wonderful survivors. They teach us to understand how that spirit of gratitude for the little things of life. And they teach us a lot about joy. In many ways, you can live with very little, you can be a very joyous person. With an awful lot, you can be miserable. As I often say, one can have everything and have nothing, and one can have nothing and one can have everything, especially in terms of peace and joy and happiness in one's life. And I think our involvement in Africa teaches values that are not so apparent probably in the Northern Hemisphere or in the West. And so our work continues to build partnerships of mutuality, where both of us receive an awful lot from one another, and where we go where the need is greatest. We go into zones, especially places of war, where very few people may not go. I'm just back from Maban, in a refugee camp in the north of South Sudan, 160,000 refugees, 40,000 returnees after a 25-year war. And there we are providing education, and we are providing psychosocial activities in terms of visiting the sick, visiting the handicapped under these little plastic sheeting, plastic tents. And our work is very much walking with people who are suffering and asking them what they need, and we rendering them a service, whether it be education, whether it be psychosocial activities, whether it be praying with them or saying Mass with them. And we do that in places that are irrespective of religious belief. While this office obviously is an office of the Jesuits and a Catholic institution, a lot of our work are amongst Muslim populations. In Maban, 70% of the people are Muslim, and we work amongst people who are suffering, and that's our criteria of help. Any human being who is suffering, we reach out to them. And so that experience of being in Maban for the last 2 or 3 weeks has been a very powerful experience for me in terms of reinforcing our need to reach out to people who are suffering, and also to be called out by them to live our vocation to be good and generous human beings and good Christians. And so in a very real way, the work of our office here can be described as walking with people who are much less off than us. Also, it's a service to people, working with them to be self-reliant in their lives. And also the third aspect of our work is being a voice with them and for them, for justice in the world, for human rights, to call the world to recognize that there are many planets within our own planet, and that we need to become aware that there's 1 billion people going to bed every night hungry, or There are a child dying every 10 seconds because of lack of nutrition. When we are in our own little kind of closet, we can forget the world outside there. And what we try to do is to be a voice of those and for those who have no voice in our world today.